My name is Lance Conrad, and I'm an author. I write books for a living. I went from crawling to sprinting. Now I could run through not just one world, but many. Live not just one life, but hundreds.
He wants to marry her. He'll have to come to Tetron.
And how about a nice spoiled cousin who bullies him all the time, right? What if these two characters fell in love? What if these two characters fought to the death? Show me him standing up against an entire army single-handed. And drove most of the race before hopping out to run the last. That's a little bit different. True story, by the way. Somebody went on a trip or somebody came into town. There's your plots. They took that big old forehead and just crashed every brick, board, and brother in the house. Let me tell you a story.
All right. I am happy to be here tonight to talk about Does This Look Infected to You? A History of Medicine. Now, before we even get going, this is worth a viewer's warning. Some of these stories, at minimum, are going to be super gross, disturbing at worst, because the history of medicine is troubling.
Messy?
Messy is a great adjective for the history of medicine.
Yeah, we're running the gamut here from just disturbing, like lots and lots of dead people disturbing, to blood and gore. We're gonna have some of that.
Absolutely.
And to honest to goodness, like Hitchcockian thriller type stuff.
Yeah,
as well. There's a lot going on tonight, so
there's some
glad
of
you
these.
could join us.
Yeah, doctors, who pushed the bounds of knowledge and revolutionized medicine, and I kind of read their story and thought, I think they were a serial killer. I'm not sure you were actually okay in your head. But you know what?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was a so we started with Word of the Day, which was the series of educational videos to improve vocabulary and get kids interested in history and everything. And we kept those very PG.
Quite. These were, a lot of those are used in elementary schools.
Yes.
Sixth graders. I know of many sixth grade classes that use our Word of the Day videos as curriculum, which is cool. And so, yeah, we kept all those very, very PG. In fact, we ended up pulling one for the word eldritch.
Yeah, that was one that I wrote.
No, I wrote eldritch.
I wrote eldritch.
You did?
Yeah, Love Pass. Yeah.
I thought I did. Okay.
You
one
performed it like all of them.
Thank you. So one of us definitely wrote that one about Diablo Pass. That one ended up having to be pulled because there were a couple complaints, and that one wasn't too bad. It was spooky, but it wasn't like we left out some of the really
out the nasty stuff, and we added the note right at the end where it was like, okay, we're going to share the one really gross graphic detail. Cover your ears if you are young and sensitive. And then we talked about someone's tongue getting ripped out while they were still alive.
Yeah.
But after giving fair warning.
Now, yeah, in this show, we are less PG.
Yeah.
I still don't know if we're going to go all the way with these stories, but certainly more.
Yeah, so yeah, there were opportunities to do some really horrific, like horror podcast level stories that you're welcome. We decided to leave off and just stick to the stuff that is only somewhat disturbing.
Fair enough. All right, so let's get started, and let us start at the beginning. The father of medicine, Hippocrates. Okay.
That's a familiar name.
Yeah, the Hippocratic oath, first do no harm. That Hippocrates. he was, very popular, very influential. He was wrong about many things, right? He thought generally medicine was based around the four humors. These were the four liquids that defined human existence, right? There was yellow bile, black bile, blood, and phlegm. Phlegm. That was one of the four basic humors, and these things had to be kept in balance for someone to be healthy. So if you were out of balance with one of these humors, one of these fluids, that is where all sickness and everything came from.
So that was Hippocrates. About when are we talking? Broad strokes.
Broad strokes, a few hundred years BC.
Okay.
Okay, so this is pre-Aristotle, but not by much.
Okay. So his idea of the humors and balancing the humors persists until the late 1800s, I want to say.
There's more to it.
Oh, boy. All right.
Because as with many things, it got real ruined when it got political.
What's political about yellow versus black bile?
I will tell you. And when we're talking about ancient cultures, it's not just how do we understand and heal the body. It is also a question about the soul, right? It's about what makes a person a person.
Okay.
Right?
Phlegm apparently being part of that answer.
Phlegm being part of that answer. And phlegm also comes largely from the brain, right? Because they knew that there were brains, right? They had killed animals in the head rock up here. There was a custard-like mush bowl. And they're like, well, it's got to do something. And there were multiple theories, right? And Hippocrates, he said this was sort of the phlegm center, right? And when that got out of balance, that's where he ended up with, you got the brain there, you got runny nose there, you got phlegm in the throat, clearly, obviously running downstream from your phlegm-soaked brain. And if it ever got way out of hand, get all the way into your lungs, give you pneumonia, and, phlegm
and you
death.
die. Phlegm death.
Yes.
Wow. From your overflowing brain.
From your overflowing phlegmy brain. It was also believed that the brain getting too moist would lead to epilepsy.
Oh, thank you for saying the word moist.
Oh, man,
in relation
I was shocked
to a brain.
how often they use the word moist when talking about their brain theories.
So that's a medical term, is what you're telling me.
Apparently, back then it was. So it was real crazy. And so in the chat, Cedric Monson just said, leeches, mercury, things like that. Exactly so.
Yes.
Right? Leeches were a way of balancing these humors. Right?
Mhm.
Sometimes your phlegm got out of control. Sometimes your blood got out of control. And so they had these ways of, bringing it all back in balance. But I said, there are multiple camps here. There were differing theories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Not just Hippocrates. So Hippocrates had this humors idea. Then comes Plato. Okay? Goes a little bit more spiritual with it.
Okay.
In fact, 3. He believes that the brain is not just phlegm goo.
Step in
Okay.
the right direction.
Step in the right direction. But he believes that it is actually the housing of the divine soul, the immortal soul that God created, or the gods or whatever, created man and started from the top down. And so this was where logic lived, right? This was the rational brain.
Okay.
Or the rational spirit. Okay? That there was an
Gotcha.
actual there was an actual different spirit in this part of your body than this part. Okay? So, here was the immortal spirit.
Okay.
And then the gods put in a barrier, the neck. Right? To keep
Good.
the spirits separated. Okay? Then comes
Good design.
this spirit right here. It was called the spirited spirit. Okay. And this is where courage and the passions and ambition came from, right? This is like I think Plato also related to like people. These are like the soldiers, right? Here's the ruling class. These are the soldiers. These are the courageous ones, right? All came from here. Your thriving mortal spirit.
From the heart, as
Exactly
we
so.
continue to say
Right?
to this day.
This is one of the bizarre political parts about this that kept this such a hot topic all the way up to the 1800s, is whether the soul, the self, resided in the brain or the heart. Okay, and it starts all the way back here, right? Hippocrates and Plato and stuff. But there's one more soul, the vegetative soul. Okay, or this is your animal soul, and that once again, the gods needed to keep the spirits separated, and so they put in a diaphragm. Okay, so they found
but also your instinct or your gut, I'm going to guess.
Yes,
There it is.
yes, absolutely. It was a gut feeling, a spirit from my belly spirit.
a vegetative, spiritual
It was
feeling,
called
if you will.
vegetative because it was believed that plants only had that kind of soul.
Oh,
Right? That all things had souls, but plants only had the belly soul, right? They could only partake and grow and reproduce and just do the basic life things. And, like animals might have two, they can act with a little bit more will, but only humans had this, this extra head soul thing going on. Anyway, so that was Plato. Now comes Aristotle. Okay, we're not done yet. We're going to try to keep moving through here.
okay.
Aristotle, Plato's student, actually, he goes the other way. Okay, he says that clearly all of the motion and personality and soul of a person is in the heart. Okay, so what is the brain? Well, you see, the heart is hot. Right? It's really warm in there. Blood is warm. We know this from scientific observation, that blood is warm and it's coming from the heart. Therefore, the heart is generating a lot of heat. And the more work it does, the more heated up it gets. We need a radiator. We need something to just disperse all that heat.
Something moist.
Something moist and mushy.
Something moist, maybe that goes well with eggs.
So, Aristotle went with, no, it's all about the heart, and the brain is just a mushy radiator meant for heat diffusion from this, overly hot heart.
Evaporative cooling out your ears.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And when people get fevers, there's a lot of heat coming out up here. And if you get a head wound, it bleeds a whole lot. There's obviously a lot of blood up here, clearly for the cooling.
Clearly.
Right? It's just running all of it through there to cool down the blood because the heart, just runs a little bit too hot. So we have Aristotle and the brain as a radiator. Okay. So fast forward even more. And we end up with another big name in medicine. Not so much now, but he was like the only voice for medicine for over 1,000 years. And this was Galen. Okay. I believe he was a Greek citizen living in Rome. And he loved dissecting things. Said he dissected an animal a day without fail. Okay. Always dissecting things, but they wouldn't let him dissect a person. Okay.
I know part of this story.
Do you know his workaround?
I believe it had to do with gladiators.
It absolutely did. So the Greeks were a little bit hesitant to let anyone dissect a human being. Because of course they were. Right? If you're at a funeral and one of the guests are like, let's cut him up and see what it looks like inside. You don't invite that person anymore. Okay, that is some messed up stuff. And so, yeah, generally there was a societal taboo on dissecting human beings, of course. And the Greeks were hesitant. The Romans were restrictive, right? You don't do that. That's gross. Who invited you? Get out of here. And so he gets himself a job as a physician of sorts for gladiators.
Okay.
For the purpose of getting a little peek inside. Okay. Right? When they would get cut or bashed open, he'd take it. Oh yeah, let me fix that for you. Right? And so he writes all this down and becomes the source, right? He is the medical expert. And it isn't until, over 1,000 years later that people ever start to doubt him. And by the way, they were right to doubt. These diagrams that he'd made up, and don't get me wrong, he had pushed it forward a lot, right? He had pushed the science forward a significant amount, but they believed him almost too much, right? It got to the point where you actually had doctors, when you did get to people who would cut open bodies, the English, they were oddly fine with it.
Okay.
Get to the point where you have doctors saying, Galen said this, here is an actual dead body. Do you see that they are different? And people would still say, no, Galen's the authority. Well, there must be something wrong with that body and every other body you've cut open.
I'm going to trust Galen over the guy who is showing me a corpse.
Right?
He is. No, trust me. I am a professional because I cut open this human being.
Yeah. Anyway, turns out over 200 of the drawings that Galen had put in were from animals. Right?
Oh.
He had done the best he could, but they only let him dissect animals. And again, he was dissecting an animal a day, just doing his homework over the years.
Because I was going to ask how, I mean, given we don't have that, you can only see so much through a open gushing wound, but didn't we have animals? Pigs, for example, are very close anatomically to people. Why didn't we have a better idea of what's going on in a person based on what's going on in an animal?
Because in medicine, it really does come down to little differences. You know, Galen really did have the right shapes, or I would say mostly the right shapes and mostly the right spots. But how much do you want your doctor to say he's mostly sure about where most of your organs are, right? There are issues with exactness in medicine. Now, real quick, I do want to talk about what Galen thought about the brain. Okay. Because it is fun. But then we'll move on. So Galen went back the other way, right? Aristotle had gone to the heart. Galen comes back up to the head as being the center for intelligence, specifically the ventricles. Okay.
The ventricles?
Yes. Oversimplified, these are bags of fluid that help keep the brain cushioned.
Okay.
So these are airbags filled with water. Or fluid, anyways. And so Galen sees this. He sees that the brain pushes on them and decides the brain is a pump.
A pump?
A pump. It pushes on these ventricles and squishes out this intelligence goo through those nerves, the nervous system, to the organs and helps direct them.
Once again, kind of the right direction.
Yeah, right direction. Yeah, he put all the intelligence in the essentially the cushioning fluid.
Bags of goo around the brain.
Yes, but the mushy brain itself, that was just a pump to help push out the intelligence goo into the body.
Okay.
So, and like I said, he was believed so hard. And yeah, it got to the point where, even when people could prove that things were one way, as long as tradition or Galen said it this other way. Now, let me talk real quick. One of the reasons why it was believed so hard is because it got the backing of the Catholics.
Oh boy.
Okay.
And we're back to politics.
We're back to
somehow.
politics, right? This whole brain versus heart thing was also a doctrinal matter. And so
Because of the soul.
because of the soul, right? The soul, anybody who described what was going on as purely a physical thing, those were generally put down because we know that the soul is immortal. So
Right.
we needed an explanation that had the soul being something more than just fluids.
Goo.
More than just goo. It has to be more than goo. And so we actually went more towards some of these, humors and souls and things like that. Mostly because, it fit with the doctrine at the time. And so, these things, a lot of times they didn't change because to go against the accepted medical doctrine was to go against the theological doctrine. Right? How dare you say that I don't need to balance my blood? You must be a heretic who, I don't know, kills puppies or something.
Or, cuts open dead bodies.
Or cuts open dead bodies,
pokes
right?
around inside.
Those are also weirdos.
Hmm.
Oh, man. Crap, we're going to come back to that one. I have a gross story about that.
But there's a whole list of things that we just talked about that were gross stories in and of themselves.
Indeed. Kate Forsyth in the chat says, these phrases survive being phlegmatic, from phlegm.
Yes.
Sanguine, from blood. Yes, we
Correct.
still have these medical organ tie-ins.
Vestiges, you could say.
Vestiges. When a person is being hysterical. Same root word as hysterectomy.
Oh, interesting.
It was believed that women had an organ that made them emotional. History's messy, people.
No. Okay.
It's real messy.
Great.
They couldn't help it. They were hysterical under the influence of that organ.
Of course. Of course.
Anyways, so we have this complete devotion to how things have always been done, and that absolutely delays the progress of medicine.
Yes. Medicine comes to be known as science's withered limb.
Oof.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because the rest of science starts to move forward again, but medicine is kind of having a hard time. They haven't actually had very many advancements since, like, the Romans.
Yeah. Galen.
Since Galen. We've been just kind of hanging out. And it's not until we get up into the industrial era
Oh, dang.
that we start to advance again. It was just stagnant for all that time, with very few advances. Now,
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to ask for an
Okay.
example of something basic, something that we take for granted today that was like a big advance at the time.
well, in 1795, this isn't even the main story. This is the opening band, right? This is the
Okay.
warm-up act. In 1795, there is a Scottish physician named Alexander Gordon,
Okay.
and he notices that a whole bunch of women who come to his hospital are getting sick with childbed fever or puerperal fever. And he notices that if you have a doctor deliver a baby from one woman and she dies of puerperal fever, that other women who were attended to by that physician on the same day also get it.
So, demons?
That's actually part of the problem.
Oh, no.
Not demons are part of the problem.
Those pesky demons.
We will not demons, but the idea that okay, so there are 3 broad theories as to what causes disease at this time. Right? There's an imbalance of the humors. Right? That there is something wrong with the way that your body is behaving that is causing it to essentially malfunction. Right? You have contagion, which is you are getting it directly from contact with another person.
Okay.
Right? And there is miasma, which is it is caused by a bad smell.
You smelled something really gross, and now you're sick and you're probably going to die.
Which makes sense, actually. And it
Yeah.
made sense to them. If you smell something really gross, right? Rotten eggs, put it under your nose, you will gag or even throw up.
And people who live in really smelly places with a lot of, like, you know, rotting dead bodies, swamps, they do
Yes.
get sick more often.
They
it
get
just
sick more
makes
often.
sense.
All of it checks out. We have all of this evidence.
Yes.
And believing that illnesses are caused by something invisible, that's superstition.
Clearly.
Clearly,
That's
obviously.
not scientific.
That's not scientific. Diseases are caused mostly by smells, sometimes by not having enough leeches. And every now and then, if you are like, you know, tongue kissing someone with the plague, that can also spread it around. But for the most part, you're looking for smells and humors. But all of this, like, invisible creatures or, you know, or something wrong with the bed sheets or something wrong with the soil or something wrong with the food or water, it's not those are all just what you're describing is curses, and we don't believe in curses.
We're advanced now.
We're advanced now. Nobody believes in this stuff anymore. So, 1795, Alexander Gordon notices that these doctors, if there was a doctor that if there was a doctor that delivered a baby and that mother died of puerperal fever, the other mothers that he visited also died.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
horrible.
or at least got sick. Puerperal fever actually had a very high mortality rate. It was like 30% or something. It was very high. So he recommends that if a woman dies of puerperal fever, that you burn the bedclothes, you fumigate the clothing of all of the staff, and that the doctor has to wash his hands to get the curse juices off.
So this guy was a dangerous extremist, you're saying?
This guy, he was obviously a crazy person.
Clearly.
He's Scottish, and they believe in unicorns and fairies, and obviously he's a crazy person.
Oh, those Scots.
And he is disregarded. 1829, Robert Collins in Ireland. Same thing. He sees same correlation, right? A lot of women dying. He says, okay, here's what I'm going to do. We've got this problem, bunch of women getting sick. I think that it's being spread by the doctors and the bedclothes. We're going to strip all the beds, boil them, and wipe down all of the walls with essentially bleach. Chlorinated lime? Chemist person?
Yeah, lime chloride.
Lime chloride. We're going to wipe down all of the walls and floors. And once again, it got rid of the disease, but got him painted as like a lunatic. Because he's like, I made a magic potion that I'm going to spread on the walls, and it's going to make the illness go away. Once again, everybody's like, the Irish are out of their minds. American Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. presents a paper. This is 1843. So we are...
Oh, dang.
Yeah, we are getting close to modern times.
Yeah, that's already like Civil War type era.
Yes. Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. presents a paper about puerperal fever again because it's killing a lot of women, and he comes out and says, hey, I think that we should start having doctors wash their hands, wash their clothes, and if a woman that they're attending dies, that they should be isolated from patients for 24 hours. Once again, nobody is listening. They think that he is being ridiculous.
So this is a disease we've essentially cured now 3 times over,
Yes.
and still no one will believe it.
Still no one believes it. Because what you're describing, right, a doctor went and delivered a baby from a woman who got sick and died, and then went and delivered a baby to another woman, and she got sick and died. What you're describing is bad luck. Not something that the doctor is doing wrong. We are describing bad luck. And there's nothing that we can or should change about that.
Oh boy. All right.
So, fast forward again
Okay.
to 1846.
Okay.
We have a young man, he's 28 years old, just graduated from medical school, right? Not too long ago. Graduated from medical school. His name is Ignaz Semmelweis.
Ah.
Yeah? Okay. So Ignaz Semmelweis is this very bright young man, but he's also a little bit of an outsider, right? Because he's not from a very wealthy family. He's the son of a grocer. But he's very, very intelligent, and he has worked his way through medical school, and he has now taken a position as the assistant to Professor Johann Klein at the Vienna General Hospital, where he is serving as the clerk of records.
Okay.
He is going through their records, and he sees something disturbing.
Not surprising.
They have 2 clinics dedicated to babies. They have 2
Obstetrics.
obstetrics. That's the word. They have 2 of these maternity wards at their hospital. The first ward, which is manned by doctors and students, right?
Okay.
And the second, which is manned by midwives and their trainees.
2 teams. Got it.
Yes. The services at these clinics are offered for free, just as an attempt by the Austrian government to try to improve general health and well-being, because there were a lot of poor people that were afraid to go to the hospital because it cost too much, and so would just have their babies at home, and there would be some kind of complication, and the baby would die.
Ugh.
Right? And so, not being monsters, they were like, well, we should find a way to not have people absolutely crippled by medical debt and still be able to get the treatment that they need.
Gotcha. So hence the free clinic.
Hence the free clinic.
Doctors in one
Right.
camp, nurses or midwives in the other.
Yes, so we are now training additional doctors and midwives, and we're offering their services for free. All you have to do is tell us, we'll send an ambulance, we'll bring you in, we'll treat you. But the childbed fever is a major risk at this time. A lot of even very famous people died of childbed fever at this time. Mary Shelley's mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, died of childbed fever.
Oh, wow.
Even famous people were dying of this thing, and it was everywhere. So Semmelweis is looking at the records, and he notices that the rates of childbed fever are much, much, much higher at the clinic run by doctors. And they are much, much lower at the clinic run by midwives. Something like 6 times higher at the clinic run by doctors. Right? Let's see if I can remember the numbers. In the clinic run by the midwives, it was 1 woman in 100. No, that's not right. It was 1 woman in 20, about 5%.
Okay.
Would die of childbed fever. So still pretty high.
Yeah,
right?
that's still horrifying.
At the doctor's clinic, it was 1 in 5. It's 20%.
Oh.
And the numbers went up and down and around and everything. But by and large, it's really, really bad. So bad, in fact, that when women are brought to the hospital, they beg the ambulance driver to take them to the second clinic, even if it's not the second clinic's day to take in new patients. And if they were refused, there were multiple cases of women bailing out of the ambulance and having their baby on the street.
Oh! Rather than go to the death doctors.
Yeah, refusing to go into the clinic and instead having their baby on the sidewalk. And the women who had their babies on the sidewalks also had a higher survival rate.
Still did better. Oh, man.
Than the clinic. So, Semmelweis sees this, and he's this very analytical person. He looks at it and says, something is wrong. And there's got to be a way to fix it. So he digs into it, and he starts looking for clues. And so one of the things is that the midwives tend to have women deliver like lying on their sides, and the doctors have women lie on their backs. And so he goes and retrains all of the doctors and gives it time to take effect, and there's no change. Right? They continue to just drop like flies. He goes through and he goes and like walks through the halls, and he realizes that there's this sound of a bell ringing. And he goes and tracks it down, and it's the priest coming to give last rites to the women that are dying. And it's almost constant in this place. So he goes to the priest and says, I think I have an idea. I think that you are causing...
It's you and your stupid bell.
I think it's you and the bell. I think these women are, like, dying of fear. I think that the fear is disrupting their humors, causing them to develop a fever and die. So get rid of the bell, mister. You can still do the last rites, but no more bell. I need you to sneak in here.
Why do we even have a bell?
Nope. What are you, the ice cream man? So he literally has the priest like sneak in if he's gonna do anything. He's not allowed to use the main corridor anymore. He's gotta sneak in to give last rites.
If he's killing people with his bell.
Yeah.
Serves him right.
It also does not work.
Naturally.
Tragically, it was not the bell.
It was not the bell.
They were not
we were so
actually
close.
dying of fear. Even though that would be pretty metal. So he tries a bunch of these different things to see if anything works, if anything sticks, and it doesn't. Everybody's still dying. So he does. He actually makes a pretty good decision and goes on vacation. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good call. When he gets back, not only have things not gotten better, his friend has died.
Oh.
One of the other doctors has died while he was away. And he says, well, how did he die? They say, well, he was doing an autopsy, assisting one of these other students, and the student cut his hand with the scalpel. And then he developed meningitis and died. And Semmelweis looks at all of this stuff and he says, you know what? this looks exactly like childbed fever.
But wait, he wasn't a pregnant woman.
He wasn't a pregnant woman. He was certainly not afraid of bells. Something happened to him in that autopsy that caused him to become sick. So he developed this theory that maybe there were invisible bits of cadaver, he called them cadaverous particles, that were too small to be seen, but were there on the knife, that were transferred to his friend when the student accidentally cut his hand. So he starts to look into it, and there is a detail about these doctors that I have been leaving out. The doctors in the first clinic performed autopsies on everyone that died.
Everyone?
Yes.
Holy smokes.
So they were doing autopsies all the time. This was a teaching hospital, so it was a great opportunity to show people, like we were talking about, what's going on inside of a person. So all of these people are dissecting people every day. They are covered in gore all of the time because that's what doctors look like. It's the mark of their profession. When they walk into a room, you want to know that you've got a real doctor. And the only way to know that is if he's covered in someone else's blood. So, doctors would go straight from the autopsy table to delivering babies.
With their dead person hands.
With their dead person hands, with their cadaverous particles.
Ugh. Ugh.
And Semmelweis finally connects the dots, and he is horrified. Like, this is a realization that shook him to his core. He just cannot wrap his mind around this. He's figured out what is causing this epidemic of childbed fever, and it's the doctors. The doctors are the ones killing everyone.
It wasn't the bell at all.
It wasn't the bell. It wasn't even the priest.
I thought for sure it was the priest.
I could have sworn it was the priest. It was the doctor the whole time. The man with the knife. It seems obvious now that I look back on it. So, he freaks, obviously. But also, he has developed enough rapport that he is able to go to his boss, the director of the hospital, and say, we are doing some sweeping changes right now. And he goes and buys a bunch of chlorinated lime, which for those of us who don't know chemistry, what is chlorinated lime?
Bleach is actually pretty close. It's a chlorine cleaner, essentially. Used, I believe, in sewers. For cleaning up some of those things because it did kind of like burn organic matter on a certain level.
Oh, wow.
And so it was one of these things used to help get down the smell, right? Because the smell of these sewers and everything would, cause sickness because smell does that. And so, yeah, chlorinated lime was one of the things used to clean some of these sewers and kind of keep the smell down.
Okay.
And so I think that was the connection.
Yes. So he goes and makes this solution of chlorinated lime and water. He says, okay, every doctor has to wash their hands before delivering a baby. That's everybody, right? All of you doctors, all of you students, you have to wash your hands thoroughly. And they do so. Not happily. Because they're kind of resistant to this idea of like, hey, I figured out what the problem was. It was you.
Turns out
you are the problem.
Killed all these patients of yours.
You killed all these people. It was completely unnecessary. Just dip your lily white hands in this, and it will make the
potion.
Dip your hands in this potion. It'll make the illness goblins go away. That's how he sounded. But deaths drop 90%.
Nice.
He says, okay, no, everybody's washing their hands, right? Not just the doctors and students, everybody's washing their hands. You know what? I'm going further. We're washing the bedclothes. We're washing the instruments. We're washing the walls.
You unhinged freak.
We're going to make this entire hospital completely sterile. And people are not happy about this because it smells. And according to the miasma theory of disease, all of these strong smells are going to make people sick.
You know, ironically, I still to this day hate the smell of hospitals.
Yeah, hospitals smell gross.
Right.
And bleach. Not a great smell.
Yeah.
And so he's just wiping down the entire hospital. The whole place smells like bleach, and everybody's like, you are going to make people sick. My eyes are burning. That's a sign that I'm probably going to get eye cancer. You're making people sick. But in 2 months, the fatality rate from puerperal fever drops to 0. 0 fatalities.
Vindication, they all love him now.
Vindication, all of his students love him. His students love him a lot. His coworkers eventually come to love him a lot. And they say, you should publish. The world needs to know about this. And he says, I'm really busy. I'm really busy, you guys. I am running a hospital. I am trying to sterilize the world. You guys do it. And they say, you know what? We will. So his friends and students go out into the world to various conventions and seminars and everything and say, you guys won't believe what Ignace is doing. It's the coolest. We've managed to get rid of childbed fever. And then everybody says, oh yeah? How? And they say, well, we wiped it all down with this magic potion. And I say, okay, well, what's the reasoning behind that? What's the scientific reason? And I say, it's invisible ghosts from the dead people, from the people that have died of childbed fever before. Because yeah, they died, and then the doctors were next to the dead people, and they carry the stuff from dead people with them. It does not go great. The medical community at large considers Semmelweis to be kind of a hack, because his students and friends show up and are like, hey, he did the greatest thing, but they can't explain it. They don't have scientific rationale. And everything that they're saying is, hey, guess what? Doctors cause disease. It does not go over well.
Oh, man.
So Ignace, who is just trying to run his hospital and save lives, which he's doing successfully, he's doing his job right, he starts getting hate mail from all over the world. All over the world. People are sending him letters saying, I hope you die. Because you are a heretic and you hate doctors and you don't understand science and you've got your magic potion and you didn't even publish anything. So eventually he does get around to publishing, but what he publishes is this diatribe, this screed,
angry rant.
You are all murderers! You're all murderers! Part of this was that he also, we don't know exactly what was going on, but he had some kind of illness affecting him already at this point. Some people claim that it was syphilis, which was actually really common for doctors to get.
Pretty much everyone had syphilis around that time.
Yeah, that's a whole other horror story that maybe we'll get to another day. A lot of people claim that it was syphilis. It wasn't necessarily syphilis. It was or it was syphilis and something else, like early onset dementia, but he started to act very erratically. Since, I can't really blame him because he was getting hate mail from strangers because he saved the lives of a bunch of poor women for free. So he does publish this monster book. And it is just filled with this rage and just yelling at people and screaming and saying how all doctors are filthy and their hands carry disease and illness, and it's a mess. And so his book comes out, and everybody that wasn't already dismissive of him reads his book and says, well, yeah, obviously this guy is a crazy person.
Oh, man.
Obviously. He gets fired from his job. His successor does continue doing the hand washing for a while, though, which is good. And things stay down with that for a while until eventually they stop, and then it goes back up again. Ignaz Semmelweis returns home to his hometown of Buda. No, he returns home to Pest. He returns home to what we now know as Budapest in Hungary, and lives the rest of his days pretty much writing angry letters and drinking.
Oh.
Because he is very upset. And he writes the greatest letters to all of his detractors, to all of these people that don't believe him. He is writing letters that are like calling people a medical Nero and accusing them of sending out with each of, it was, I'm paraphrasing, but it was, each of your students that you send out is a murderer injected into society. It's this extremely strong language. So once again, he continues to alienate himself, and even the people that believed in him and believed in this whole hand washing thing that he promoted gradually move away from being associated with him.
Ugh.
Okay, now the story gets really depressing.
Now, we only have about 9 minutes left.
Okay, let's make this snappy. So, still relatively young. He doesn't really get to be all that old. He sees a light at the end of the tunnel when he is invited to come inspect a new hospital and to apply his methods there.
Cool.
He shows up very excited because at last he's going to be able to implement his methods once again, save a bunch of lives.
All good stuff. Vindication.
Yeah, except for it's an insane asylum that his wife was having him committed to.
Oh.
He resists for obvious reasons. The guards beat him to death.
Oh.
The end.
Oh. Oh.
Okay, so actually, they beat him into unconsciousness. It's actually worse than that. They beat him into unconsciousness, put him in a straitjacket, and lock him in a room. The cuts on his face and body become infected, and he dies of blood poisoning, similar to puerperal fever.
He dies of the thing he was trying. Oh, man.
The end. But Semmelweis does eventually get his due.
Not while he was alive.
Not while he was alive. But there are now Semmelweis libraries. There is a Semmelweis museum.
Nice.
There are Semmelweis hospitals. And
doctors wash their hands.
And doctors wash their hands, which is probably the best of all, except for maybe there's an exoplanet named after him.
Nice.
He got a planet named after him.
I hope I get a planet one day. That'd be cool.
That'd be great. But mostly, today, pretty much no one dies of puerperal fever.
Nice.
It is quite rare. We've come a long way, and these days, everybody, not just doctors, washes their hands, and that is thanks to Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis, the savior of mothers.
Nice. So I recognize the name because there's actually a psychological effect named after him as well. More the tragic part, called the Semmelweis reflex.
Yes.
Right? And that is where if you have a set of beliefs, right? You know how the world is and how it works. If you are presented with evidence or some new practice that goes against that, your reflex is to discard it. Nope. Fake news.
Immediately.
Right?
By reflex.
It's interesting because we talked about the history of medicine. We're still in the history of medicine.
Yes.
Right? There's still so much that we don't understand, but like people still have a hard time with that. Especially things like the hand washing thing. Why doesn't it work, or why does it work? We don't know. There's still quite a bit of that. I've seen a bit actually with I mentioned last week on Author's Corner that I actually get into acupuncture a little bit, right? And I've said that around some of my more learned type friends, and I see this just right. It's like, oh, crystals, essential oils, right? They shut down so hard, so fast.
Give us so acupuncture is needles poked into various places.
Okay, it sounds as crazy as your potion story.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the whole idea is, okay, well, you got a headache. I'm going to stick a needle in your hand, and that's going to help your headache. Right? Even if it worked clearly just
Placebo effect.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's how they dismiss it so fast. But there have been blind studies, many blind studies carried out in hospitals by certified people. These are on, you can search them up. And yeah, it clearly works, right? Which I'm already pleased by the idea of blind studies. It means someone was getting real acupuncture in the points that are supposed to create the magical effects. Other people were being stabbed at random. There you go. There's a needle in your cheek or whatever. That should help, right?
Your headache feels better now.
They even came up. So that was one way that they had to control for the placebo effect was by putting needles in completely random places.
Stabbings. Okay.
Acupuncture style performed. And then they went farther than that, as maybe it's something there. And they actually came up with these little things that were a needle with an adhesive thing where you could just put it on the spot and then just pop the needle in, right? For control and stability and all that, but also for faking it, right? They had some of these where when you hit the needle, it was like one of those collapsing daggers. So the person would still feel the point against their skin, right? They get a little bit of a poke, but the needle never actually went in. And so they had fake collapsing needles. And yeah, it just keeps working, especially for things like pain and inflammation, right? Its effect on pain and inflammation is unquestioned in all of these studies. And yet, again, anyone you talk to, it's just this, nope.
The Semmelweis reflex.
It's a Semmelweis reflex, and it's fascinating to see.
Well, it is
depressing a little bit, but fascinating.
Well, because the explanation that we have right now is just magic.
Yeah. We don't know how it works. The whole system that created.
To be dismissive, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be dismissive, but
right. But when you start talking about chi and life force, like how does it work? Oh, the energy meridians of the body is like the what now?
It doesn't sound very scientific.
It doesn't sound.
I will give you that.
Very scientific. But it works. But if you can't explain how it works, yeah, it kind of increases like, eh. Now, I do want to end on a different story than Semmelweis because that was mad depressing.
Thank you.
Okay, that was just awful. So I will end on, let's go with Sir James Young Simpson. Now, I love this guy for many reasons. His appearance. Do we have a picture of Sir James Young Simpson? This guy looked like a Scottish Hobbit mayor, is the best way that I can describe this man. Now, this man here, Mr. Simpson, is an obstetrician. Okay. And he's a good one. And he trains people and he's all this, but he doesn't like all this pain that's going on. And he and his friends, who are also doctors, want to do something to cut down on all the pain people are feeling, right? And so they start trying stuff. he and his friends get together in evenings and just start like huffing gases and swallowing chemicals, just seeing if any of them might kill pain. This is a real thing that this hobbit did. And it was amazing.
Are they like smashing their fingers with hammers or something? How are they?
I guess they're just waiting to see if it's a buzz, right? It's kind of like I heard a comedian one day talk about, I heard that people were licking frogs to get high, and I have to wonder, how many animals did they go through before they found the frog? Right?
Right.
It is, yeah, it's insane. But then they get one.
Okay.
They actually pass around a chemical, and they all wake up in the morning. They're all just like, whoa, right, still dressed like they were like, I think we found something. And so they call his niece in there.
Oh,
and
that
like,
sounds
here,
safe.
take this. She says, I forget the exact quote. I'm like, I had the wings of an angel, and collapses and is out. And they're like, we got it, right? This was their great success. That they got it. And that was the invention of chloroform.
Chloroform.
Or not the invention. It had been around as a chemical for some time, but as an anesthetic for human beings, that's when they figured it out.
Okay.
Now, I would love to paint him purely as a hero, and honestly, he did great work. Okay, I have nothing really wrong with the guy. I like him. That guy's cool. But there was stuff later where people started dying of chloroform.
Fun.
And this was his baby, and so he fought so hard to keep chloroform in that in the end he did do a little bit of harm. In fighting so hard against the dad. He had the Semmelweis thing, right? The Semmelweis reflex. Like, this person took chloroform and their heart stopped. Like, wasn't the chloroform, right? It just, nope. I'm not going to believe it. I'm not going to believe that my great discovery is now killing people.
Must have been a pre-existing condition.
Yeah. Though part of it was because they did have, it was weird who died in chloroform. Okay. It was the healthiest people, and it was people who were afraid. And they couldn't quite figure out the connection. Turns out, chloroform has an entire body dampening experience, right? It slows down everything, slows down the brain, and you go to sleep, and you're anesthetized.
Okay.
Right? Problem is, that's also acting on your heart. Okay.
Not ideal.
And the healthiest people, their brain would stay awake longer. And so it took higher and higher dosages. And yeah, their heart would give out first.
Shoot.
And the fear ones, these ones were the craziest ones, right? Because it was still like chemicals and smell bad. I'm about to have surgery. And so they'd get all, and they would hold their breath. And it's not working. Let's do some more.
Shoot.
Hold the breath. We need more. And they would essentially OD on it because they weren't breathing naturally. They'd, pull it in all at once and get an overdose and die. And so, yeah, that's one problem with chloroform. The other one is it is also carcinogenic. And that is why chloroform is not used nowadays. But honestly, for the time, it was revolutionary. Compared to what they had, which was do it really fast, right?
Yeah.
Surgeons were valued not for accuracy, but for speed. There's a
Cancer
famous...
was the least of your issues.
Yeah, cancer's the least of your worries in a surgery, man. I mean, if I was back in that age, give me the chloroform. I will breathe slowly and deeply. I got this. Rather than, they would just, the faster you could get done with it. In fact, there was a classic story, and this, I'm sorry for smiling. It's horrifying. But there was a surgeon who went for a record in cutting off a limb. It was an amputation, and they got it done, I think, in less than a minute. But it was done so brutally that I believe the patient died.
Yeah.
He also cut, I believe, his assistant and a bystander who also developed infections and died. So it was the fastest surgery ever. It also had a 300% fatality rate. Okay, I mean, just stacking the bodies. Now,
Wow.
we are out of time. We had so much more, and actually, we are still going to run it, but not here. We're actually going to be filming some material that's going to go on our Patreon page as exclusive content, as a bonus and thanks for those who support us in doing this. We love doing this and would like to continue doing this. So we would like to reward our patrons that help us keep on doing that. So we're going to have more content on there, and we might actually be doing some bonus live sessions like this also for our patrons. As always, remember to like and comment and subscribe and all that good stuff. Next week, we're actually going to be doing a bonus story stream because it's the 5th Thursday. And we're going to be doing another story stream. We haven't come up with a catchy title for it, I think, but we're going to be doing European royalty. I feel like I can already give a warning about that one. If you thought the history of medicine was horrifying, the history of a bunch of people with nearly unlimited power is also fairly horrifying. So make sure you join us next week, 6:30 Mountain Standard Time on Thursdays. Thank you all so much. And that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.